Beyond Tech, where innovation meets insight.
We're your hosts, Jackie Slaght and Jennifer Palumbo. We bring curiosity, clarity, and a passion for technology-driven storytelling to every conversation.
Today we're going to be talking about the consumer packaged goods and food and beverage industries, and they are evolving faster than ever. As we head into 2026, manufacturers face mounting pressure to modernize legacy systems, meet sustainability goals, and adapt to shifting consumer expectations. All while, of course, still navigating labor shortages and rising costs. In this episode of Beyond Tech, we're joined by Trent Meyers, Vice President of Process Industries at eTech Group, and Nish Patel, Director of Corporate Development.
Trent Meyers is the Vice President of Process Industries at eTech Group. He leads automation and digital transformations initiatives for consumer packaged goods and food and beverage manufacturers. With decades of engineering and operations experience, Trent helps clients optimize performance through innovation, control systems, and data-driven strategies. Joining Trent is Nish Patel. Nish is the Director of Corporate Development and Strategy at eTech Group. Nish is joining us for all our industry episodes, bringing in macro views and insights to the conversation. Thank you, Trent and Nish, for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
It's great to have you guys. So let's get into it. What are some major trends that are shaping the future of the CPG and food and beverage industries as we head into 2026?
So from in the plant floor level, technological integration is one of the big pushes, and it's really the connected factory, and it's been around for a long time, but now it's more focused on, real-time data for operations, for maintenance, for QC, order processing. Some of our customers are even using that data to forecast orders for the future, using that to set their production schedules. Robotics and AMRs and AGVs, improving consistency and addressing personnel issues. Robots and AGVs don't call in sick. They also don't quit. So we're seeing a lot of customers driving for that. And then digital twins, people are using that for simulation, but then also troubleshooting and training. So, we talked originally about operations and staff issues. As people look to accelerate their onboarding process for their employees, it's a lot easier to do with the digital twin. And then the individual companies are able to control the training environment versus the legacy. The most senior guy trains you, and so then they pick up all those same bad habits. So if you're training with a digital twin, it really, employees are trained the way you want them to be trained, not the way that, the guy who happened to be on shift trained you that day. And then there's also supply chain resilience, traceability, and sustainability. So a lot of our clients have sustainability goals, which are driven by, in large part, their consumers. So if people are more cognizant now about reading labels and they want to purchase from companies that care about the environment. So as companies move more towards that, automation companies like us, integrators, are working on, tool systems and processes to improve their efficiency, whether that's through CIP optimization or sustainable packaging. Those type of things are all expected to be forefront in 2026.
And do those types of investments around sustainability, I think maybe a misconception is that these are really expensive efforts. Can you talk a little bit about that, how we talk about sustainability with clients and how it might actually save them money and improve things for them?
Right. Obviously, if companies are doing sustainability only to, check the box, then that is not the true benefit of sustainability. Sustainability really can reduce cost from the system. If you're looking at circular manufacturing, then, every manufacturing waste costs money. So if you reduce waste, it becomes more profitable, more economical. Some of the things we're doing now on the CIP side is significantly reducing the volume of chemical and water used in the cleaning process, which is prevalent in both CPG and food and bev, to be able to drive those costs out of the system. So there is, other than the sustainable benefit, the tree hugging benefits, there's also a cost benefit as well.
Right.
If I can do a quick shameless plug, we have a whole episode on CIP optimization with Hans and Jeff Ballard talking through the benefits and exactly what you said. There's the benefits of less waste, less chemical usage for cleaning the system, but then also a huge time saving was another benefit that they really dive into. So that, like I said, all good things for the producer. You covered a lot of different initiatives that are the CPG and food and beverage manufacturers are kind of focusing on in 2026. I wanted to shift over a little bit. Where do we anticipate the CPG industry going throughout 2026 and then and beyond, kind of more from the macro view? Nish, can you share a little bit?
Yeah, and maybe to just piggyback off of a lot of the items that Trent mentioned. The biggest trend we're seeing in automation today is really, it's no longer just sort of a nice to have. It really is just like a competitive necessity from a customer standpoint. The CPG industry in general is kind of going through this perfect storm. There's consumer expectations are very high. You've got supply chains that have just sort of tightened across the board. Legacy systems in general are kind of hitting their limits. So you're seeing a lot of companies that are kind of really leaning into automation generally, not just for efficiency, but really for resilience. And I feel like a lot of the focus, and Trent mentioned some of this too, just around legacy systems, that's really been the big shift. Folks are really focused on whether it's packaging lines, controls, ERP integrations, things that were sort of installed basically a decade ago are now sort of not able, really designed to sort of handle the SKU complexities that consumers are asking for. And that's been really the shift. So I guess with that, where does that really take us into 26? If I really had to summarize it, I feel like this next chapter is almost like, call it the smart resiliency era. Over the past few years, automation was all about productivity. I feel like now it really is adaptability. Really, the questions are, can your operations flex quickly to sort of meet consumer demands? If labor forces change, how do you sort of respond to that? If energy costs are all of a sudden spiked, how do you sort of respond to that? I think those are the questions that folks are really asking for. And we're already seeing companies really re-architect their systems to sort of really become more data-driven and really modular too. And I think that trend specifically in 26 is going to continue. Just the sharper sort of focus on real-time intelligence, I think is going to be key.
That makes sense. Kind of touching on a couple things that both of you said, there's some differing consumer expectations. Of course, they always change, right? But a lot of emphasis right now on transparency. Trent, you already talked about sustainability a little bit, but of course, these things influence operations for CPG and food and bev. And what role does automation play in helping manufacturers meet these goals?
So really, especially on the green side, the tighter your process control is, the less waste you have, whether it's in-process rejects. So really, we're focused on, tightening process control, but then also improving the visibility externally. Days gone by, it was the plant manager knew what was going on, and then when his boss had to call him to find out what was going on. Well, now people just flip on their screen and see it. So the connectivity is really being pushed, as well as being able to tighten process control and provide robust systems for the future.
To your point, consumers today generally, it's not just about what's in the product, it's how was the product made, what ingredients were used, how much waste was minimized, if any. I think these are the questions consumers are asking across the board. And I feel like to Trent's point, like automation plays a big role into that. Really the point around traceability and sort of having the digital footprint to kind of get into every batch that is being produced is very key. And I feel like automation really is a way to get to a measurable outcome for sustainability, because you could really sort of put numbers behind it, and consumers really want that.
Right. Traceability, really big in the news right now as we see there's a really large listeria outbreak. And we don't even know really how widespread it is. And that's something that I know automation plays a role in. Trent, can you speak a little bit more to some of the solutions that you've worked with clients on, or you've heard clients request?
Sure. So in some of our projects, we specifically, we're working with warehouse solutions. So we're providing traceability and in this case, it's pallet level, but ultimately when it goes to the final user, it's by case level. So we are tracing all the way through the process which supplier supplied the product, and as it moves through the process, and then to the final delivery point, and then ultimately to the consumer, to be able to provide our client with true traceability all the way through the process. So if they do have a problem, they know exactly where it came from and how to quarantine, which lot number needs quarantine based on that problem.
Yeah, the goal is always safety, of course, but being able, to your point, be able to pinpoint and figure out exactly what the source of the contamination or any kind of issue is really important. Thanks for that.
Yep.
Switching topics a little bit, Trent, you mentioned digital twins and smart manufacturing earlier. So want to get a little bit more from you on how you see digital twins and smart manufacturing systems transform production planning and responsiveness in CPG.
Sure. So there's and another shameless plug, just like Jackie did earlier. We actually did a webinar on digital twins. You can actually see that and see, Nick and Cole are leading that effort for us. And so where we see it going is it is not the right thing for every process. So it's more applicable, more of a, not necessarily the making process. There are lots of tools, whether it's, Delta V process control systems or whatever that are better for the process side. But for once the product moves from, making whatever it is, and whether it's food and beverage or consumer products, there's generally speaking, a making process and then a packaging and out the door process. So it's more applicable in the packing and out the door process. And what we're seeing is companies that are investing in it are doing so for really the main reason is a unified view of operations so that they can see what's going on. They're also using it for maintenance troubleshooting. So, for those who have been in manufacturing, the hardest problem of solving a problem is you've got to identify what the problem was to start with. So the beauty of a digital twin is you can back it up in time and find out exactly what happened to cause the failure that then caused the rest of the failure. So had I had that in my past life, it would have, made things a lot better, but didn't have it then. But then also for training, I mentioned that earlier. So big thing people are using it for is training, but then they're also using it for visualization of downtime in the process, and then also visualization of uptime and availability. So through some additional analytics, you can actually put, with the model, you can actually put in real-time production rates, et cetera, and link that to other processes within the system.
Interesting.
One of the things Cole touched on in the webinar as well was that using digital twins like before the line is created as like a proof of concept. So you're not going through and like putting something together that then at the very end you realize it doesn't actually work the way you thought. So he said that could be used also for huge benefits.
That's a huge cost. It's a lot, back to the original premise of drawing. You want to design something on paper before you implement it because that's the most cost-effective place to make changes is in design. So if you're doing a digital twin, it's a whole lot more. It's at the time it's expensive, but when you're doing it, it's a whole lot cheaper than shelling out a bunch of money for a line that may or may not work. So it allows you to validate a process or confirm that it'll do what you want it to do as you move forward. And that's really important for, we mentioned changing customer demand. So and this was really prevalent immediately post-COVID when consumer demand, totally shifted and changed the way that everything is packaged today from, larger quantities down to individual at-home sizes. The digital twin provides an opportunity to quickly vet design line or changes in a line required to change your packaging format or any of that kind of stuff. So it's a faster, more cost-effective way to do that. It takes out a lot of the guesswork.
So going along the same lines as digital twin, I think we would be remiss to not touch on how AI and machine learning are being used to improve product quality, reduce downtime, and forecast demand in CPG operations.
Yeah, so we're actually doing that with a client right now, and the biggest thing is to get the data. You've got to become connected. So some of the challenges that our clients are facing is the individual digital maturity of facilities varies across all the facilities in their fleet. So the first step is we've got to upgrade the facilities to allow them to be connected, and then once they are connected, that allows you to benchmark facilities against each other. If you have common processes within facilities, why is facility A at this rate and this cost, and why is facility B at this rate and this cost? And that allows you to benchmark that from a more global perspective. But then it also provides actual product-specific center lines. So by that I mean, based on a given product family, the sweet spot that it should run. And being able to have that connected data and doing the analytics on it offline, you're providing feedback to the operator to, make the adjustments that they need to make the line run better. Now, there is, and our clients aren't doing this yet, and very few, I believe, are. This particular client, the operators are actually making adjustments. There is the capability for the AI model to make the adjustments, but the majority of clients have not reached that comfort level yet to let that happen.
Yeah, I was going to say that exact point. To take that a step further, like think of it this way. AI really went from being a buzzword to really being practical. And what Trent noted a lot, there are use cases where folks are using AI for demand forecasting. So before a customer demand has sort of shifted, folks are already adjusting. And the best example of this is like, if you see customers are buying more, zero sugar drinks, the plant can automatically sort of adjust its production lines to meet that demand before retailers are already calling in saying, hey, we need X amount of product again. And that's really what folks are using AI for. And that's a great point. I think we're seeing that a lot, and I think that will continue to kind of come up. So. And
it also builds on, we talked a lot about sustainability. Well, in manufacturing, one of the biggest things of waste is a warehouse. So it allows you to optimize what you have in your warehouse based on customer demand. So you're not storing a bunch of slow moving product because you're feeding forward what the trends are telling you that the forecast should be. So you're producing what is anticipated to be bought and ramping down production on the slow movers.
You said a lot of the CPG customers and clients that we're working with are still in the process of getting ready to leverage AI. Go into a simple overview of how would they get ready so they can take advantage of the impact that AI can have.
Sure. So the first thing, again, is to get connected. So get your data connected, but the challenge is now you have all this data connected, what are you going to do with it? So to some extent, you've got to separate the forest from the trees. So you've got to understand, I have all this data now, which of it is pertinent, which of it is meaningful. What are the 10 things that, that really drive my ROI on this line? So it's having access to the data, being able to understand what data is meaningful, what drivers manipulate that data, and then institute processes to be able to control those points and provide visibility to those data points, as well as the impact of adjustments made to those points to be able to change. So there are a variety of our partners out there that are assisting clients with that there's, the biggest hurdle that we've seen is getting everything connected, but then also understanding what to do with the data, which points are pertinent, and then what are of those 20 points that are pertinent, which 10 are really driving the process, and focus on those 10, not the 14,000 that you collected.
And obviously this doesn't happen overnight either.
Right. It's not overnight.
But if you're not on the roadmap already, getting to that, you're already sort of falling behind. And that really is where we're seeing a lot of demand as well.
Now, that makes perfect sense. What would you say is the role of like IT/OT convergence in being able to leverage this data and helping improve operations?
Yeah, perfect segue. Historically, I feel like IT and OT were very separate worlds. IT really used to be focused on the ERP, analytics, and so on. OT really focused on all of the machine-related work. And I feel like now that the walls have basically come down. By integrating these systems together, you really are sort of tying your production output to essentially a financial impact. And I think that's really been a key, especially in the CPG industry, where you really need to be agile. We talked a lot about customer demand, always changing, being able to balance loads across multiple plants, just generally being able to respond faster to really stay competitive in the market. That's where we're spending and really seeing a lot of demand for us. Here at eTech, I mean, it's not just about collecting the data. It really is about how are you sort of using that to really connect the plant floor to the shop floor, really. And that's what everyone's trying to do. So
I kind of want to shift gears a little bit. I think we also should hit on like regulatory and compliance that leads a lot of CPG production and what they need to meet for those. So how can we, using automation or controls, help them meet these regulation requirements a little easier?
Yeah, I feel like compliance is one of those areas that, historically, again, you used to, regardless of what industry you were in, just keep manufacturers up at night because, FDA audits, you've got batch traceability issues, you've got food safety risks that pop up. And automation for us really sort of simplifies that. I think with controls and even reporting, I think Trent mentioned this a little bit earlier as well, you can really sort of pinpoint what was the issue, where was it, why did it happen, just so we can fix that going forward and that doesn't happen again. I think that has been pivotal and really sort of ensures consistency across your production lines as well. One of the other examples I'd say is just like recipe control and temperature controlling. Like you would want every production line, if it's producing the same product, to have the same recipe because you want to make sure that is the case. And automation, I feel like really helps you maintain that and really takes the operator or human risk out of this. So I think it really builds trust. I mean, not just from a regulatory standpoint, but also customers. I think the name of the game is not, avoiding less fines. I think it really is sort of building credibility with your customers and really building your brand. And I think that's what customers are very receptive to.
Yeah, agree as a consumer. Regulatory and compliance, those are always hot topics, but there are a lot of things that shape investment decisions. Things like rising costs for materials, labor, ingredients, if you're in food and beverage, energy is ever growing in terms of cost. How are these kind of shaping investments in automation and digital transformation?
I feel like we're really at the core sort of inflection point in automation. We're certainly seeing automation budgets increase with inflation. You noted a lot of this, Jen, like labor costs being up, energy costs just skyrocketing, margins are thin. So as a manufacturer, what do you really do? And one of the levers you can pull really is automation to sort of help improve efficiency, maintain your margin, and so on. We were actually doing this analysis. It's interesting, how the payback math around automation has changed recently. Projects that used to be, call it 3 to 5 years of ROI. In today's age, that's really sort of been pulled up to like 1 or 2 years, really 12 to 24 months. And people are seeing that return way quicker. And I think that's going to continue sort of shaping that front. I think the other piece of this is also just around talent. Nobody really wants to work on an old system, like an old HMI or a PLC system. So the quicker you automate, it really sort of helps on the talent front as well. And I think folks are really seeing that in the macro environment as well. So yeah, I mean, Trent, anything else you'd add to that from your perspective?
Sure. I guess to the first point about cost. So collaborative robots are really expanding from where they were 5 years ago, and definitely, I mean, I don't even think they were around 10 years ago, but those are becoming more and more economical to justify. And so we're really seeing a lot of development in and around that. But then from the labor perspective, our customers are having the same, challenges with not only operations staff, but it's their maintenance teams, it's their, all of those teams are struggling. The skilled trades labor workforce is getting older and older, and people aren't coming into that. So they're looking for ways to streamline their operation and really future-proof their operation by automating, which requires a different level of maintenance worker, but you can get away with with that different skill set of maintenance worker, you can also entice newer people into that trade. So they're looking for how to improve the robustness of their operation.
It makes sense. People want to work with cool technology and new technologies. It doesn't matter what the industry is, right?
Right.
So kind of continuing on, I guess a little bit in this same line of thought, can you share a success story where automation helped a CPG client improve their throughput, reduce waste, or enhance the traceability of the product?
Sure. In this example, and the line is now coming up into operation, but previously a large CPG manufacturer made products on 3 separate lines. And for those who deal with the leading warehouse outlets, the Sam's, the Costco's of the world, the BJ's, they are very prescriptive about how they want their package, what they want in their package. So there's a lot of repackaging that goes on with CPG manufacturers to get it into the format that they want. So previously this was all done by hand at this manufacturer with manual labor, several people repackaging these products into, the format that they wanted. So with this new line, they were able to make 3 different products on the same line and package them all on that same line with no manual packaging. It provides them the flexibility to be able to quickly transition from one product to another. The CIP systems on it are very efficient compared to previous systems. And really the automation, what the automation that really drove that was developed initially by our team 15 years ago, was the core structure and foundation of that line to be able to do that. So really, through automation, they were able to not only streamline their process, but because of the improved CIP processes, they were able to quickly change over product without a lot of losses, or with fewer losses than what they had before. And really meet productivity goals with minimal labor engagement.
Interesting. Can you talk a little bit about the technologies they're helping with things like waste reduction and managing things like perishable goods and spoilage?
So this specific product doesn't have a spoilage. I mean, it has a relatively long shelf life. So this one is more controlled by lot number through the process, first in, first out, in the warehouse perspective. But from as far as waste, the cleaning, the CIP process, traditionally you put a large volume of cleaning fluid and water through pipes at a high rate of speed. That produces, and all of that product has to be put down the sewer, which then has to be treated before it's disposed of. So if you can reduce the volume of cleaning fluid and water in the system, then therefore you have to treat less waste. So that's some of the big drivers of that reduction.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I feel like that's the perfect example of automation. It's not just an engineering upgrade. It really is a financial growth lever. I mean, Trent talked about saving volumes of water, eliminating sort of waste generally around whatever that may be. I feel like that drives a much higher return. So I feel like that really is the theme that folks are really focused on as well.
Yeah, agree. All right, let's switch gears then. From your experience, and either one of you feel free to jump in, what's changed the most in the CPG industry over the past decade?
Yeah, I feel like we talked a little bit about this. I think from a macro level, and would love Trent's view on the micro with what you're seeing specifically with the customers. But I feel like automation really, instead of it being a maintenance expense in the past, really is now sort of a strategic investment that everyone's making. I feel like 10 years ago, companies were investing in automation just because they had to keep a line running 24/7 or whatever the time was. Today, they're basically automating because, one, they want to stay ahead of the curve. You have faster time to market. You've got better traceability. We talked about that a ton, higher margins, and a bunch of other variables that are kind of playing into this. It's a huge advantage. And then you marry that up with all the data you're gathering across this and really being able to adapt on that front, I think has really changed how folks have viewed automation almost as an expense before. And now just, hey, we really need to do this to just stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And I guess from a physical plant level, echoing what Nish said, traditionally automation has been like a break fix. It's like something's broke, we got to fix it. And I distinctly remember from my past life, it was the easiest way for me to justify a project was I can only buy a part for this on eBay, so I need a new one. And that was how we justified projects in my past life. So where today, that still occurs, but it's less of a driver and more, how can we proactively, we got to replace this Slick 500 PLC, but instead of just replacing it, well, you can't replace it in kind anymore, but instead of just replacing it, they're looking at what else can we upgrade and get these other benefits while we're doing this to, as Nish said, to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, so speaking of staying ahead of the curve, what's one innovation or like an emerging technology that you think will be a game changer in the next few years?
Yeah, I think we've definitely talked about this, digital twins and AI really sort of being able to map out your entire production environment, removing a lot of the guesswork. I think that is going to be a big game changer. I think taking that a step further too, I think moving away a little bit from automation to really autonomy. And what I really mean by that is plants essentially not just taking instructions, whether they're from the top floor or an operator, just around, hey, here's all the metrics that we need to kind of work towards, or here's all of this that we need to fulfill. It's less of that and more of being able to learn and adapt in real time. I think we kind of use the zero sugar drink example a bit here. I think we're going to see a lot of that, and really across the plant as opposed to one manufacturing line. And personally, I think that is what I'm super excited about, to see where that kind of leads. It really sort of reducing the amount of inputs that you as the shop floor or even the top floor employee would have to sort of lean in on the plan on, and plan really just being able to adapt and make decisions on that. So I think we're a few years out of that.
I was going to say.
But that is what I am super excited about. So
definitely exciting to see how quickly things are moving, outside of the industry, but then even typically industry in general is always slower to adopt technology, and it seems that it's picking up a lot quicker over the past few years, which is great to see.
And I think building, so we haven't talked about it, but there, lights out manufacturing. So we're not there yet, but I think over time we're going to get closer and closer and closer to lights out manufacturing, to where, and that's the challenge for manufacturers is going to be, I used to have all these operators running around that operated things. Now I have operators that are monitoring processes and only doing something when there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be the next big transition, I think, in CPG, food and bev manufacturing.
And what's driving that mostly, do you think, or is it a bunch of factors?
Driving
lights out,
so the labor issues, but then also it's consistency. So way back in my earlier career, I think I remember a discussion I had with and this is in a paper mill, a superintendent that said paper making was an art. And my argument to him was, we've got all this automation on the machine. We are running the process through automation. Therefore, it's not art, it's science. Mm-hmm. So the beauty of lights out manufacturing is you are truly eliminating the human variability, which then causes mistakes, errors, because we're all human. That increases the consistency of, the final product coming out the door.
Yeah. And then maybe the art is more designing of the product or innovation and creativity around those types of things. And then the automation takes care of the actual execution of the vision, right?
I would say you could argue that designing the process could approach art, it's science and art coming together.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed this discussion. I don't think I have any other industry focused questions, but I do like to wrap up with a couple fun closing questions. So I will start with this one, and Trent, I'll let you take the answer first. But if you could automate one thing in your life, what would it be?
So, in my work life, it would be resource planning and project staffing. So that's what consumes vast majority of my time. And it's back to the same people. So we talk about our customers, struggle with people planning and all that other stuff. We have the same issues, and I would love to be able, and we are working on automating some of that. But if we could automate that whole process where, if something's supposed to take 40 hours, it takes 40 hours and not 35 or 45. So to be able to automate that in my work life would be awesome. But at home, if I could automate exercise and get the benefits without actually have to do it, I'd be all over it.
Don't we all wish that could be the case?
That's awesome. What about you, Nish?
I like how Trent at least split that up with work and non-work, where I immediately just went to non-work and I said meal prep. It just essentially having it read my mood and have the dinner ready already, I'd be all game for that. So
I think, Nish, you need to embrace the art of making risotto as a stress reducer. Although you and I cooked together at the company retreat, so actually I think you should automate that.
You should just let him cook the whole time.
I've seen you use the knife, sir.
I was going to say, I think you've forgotten those skills there, so.
That's a great answer.
What is it with this meal prep stuff? My kids all do that.
You're tracking your macros.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not great. It's not fun.
It's not great.
So keeping on this like fun trend, how would you describe your job to a 5-year-old? This is always one of my favorite questions because I get so many good answers.
Yeah, keeping on the food trend, I'd say it really just helping maybe, smart engineers design processes that can really sort of make the food that you eat get made faster, safer, and just more reliable is probably what I'd say.
You have a smart 5-year-old audience. That's all I got to say. My answer is much simpler. Is I help companies make stuff better. So whether that's cheaper, faster, more efficiently, whatever.
I like both those answers. I want to thank you guys for being with us today. I just have one final question. What would you like to see us cover on future episodes of Beyond Tech?
I think it's a similar format with different industries. And then I think it would be interesting to see the commonality between whether it's, CPG, food and bev, life science, metals, any of those and what the common threads are. And then as I have moved in my career between different industries, there's a lot of commonality between those that, I've been able to take those lessons learned previously and apply them in other places. I think our customers could do that as well.
Totally agree. That's a great idea. We've got, I know, episodes planned for the industries, but it would be really great to have a follow-on to kind of pull and see where are the commonalities. That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that would be awesome. And there, you can look forward to other industry episodes.
And critique your colleagues.
Yes.
I'm sure they'll be all over me on this one.
All of them. So he's going to be our first repeat guest. So yay, Nish.
I'm excited to be back here next week. So.
Yeah. Any other ideas for future episodes?
Yeah, I'd say, AI, I'm sure is maybe you guys have already planned this, but I think that would be super helpful. Just having crossroads of AI and all the things that we work on. I think the second piece, given our scale here and sort of where we are internationally as well, just getting a sense for how is our sort of environment around automation different across other countries and other subject areas. I think that would be useful.
That's a great idea, Nish.
It is a good idea.
Good idea. All right. Well, that is all I have. I want to thank you guys again for being with us. And like I said, I always learn a lot on these. So thanks for sharing your knowledge.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great weekend. Have a great week. Take care. Bye.